What if the secret to unforgettable success, whether in business or in life, is going above and beyond for others every time? Welcome to Detailed Book Summaries, where we turn powerful books into practical insights you can use today. In this video, we're diving into Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara, a behind-the-scenes look at how world-class service can transform ordinary moments into magical ones. Whether you're a business owner, leader, or just someone who wants to make a bigger impact, this book will change how you think about service, generosity, and connection. Before we get into it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a book that could change the way you work and live. Let's explore the remarkable power of giving people more than they expect. Chapter 1. The Moment That Changed Everything. It was a regular day in New York City. 11 Madison Park, one of the world's most prestigious restaurants, was running on its usual clockwork precision. Guests arrived. The service team moved like a choreographed ballet, and everything looked perfect on the outside. But Will Guidara, the man behind the curtain, was about to have an experience that would change not just his restaurant, but the very core of how he saw hospitality. A family from out of town had just finished their meal at 11 Madison Park. As the waiter cleared their plates, he struck up a conversation. They casually mentioned that this trip to New York had been amazing, and this dinner was the final stop before heading back home. When asked if they had done all the New York things, they said yes. Statue of Liberty, Central Park, Times Square, but with one little regret. They hadn't had a chance to try a New York street hot dog. Now, at a restaurant where every plate is a work of art, where menus are carefully crafted and every ingredient curated, Will Guidara had a decision to make. He heard the story, and he acted. He sprinted out the back door into the streets of New York and found the closest hot dog cart. He bought a dog, rushed back into the kitchen, and had the chefs plate it with all the elegance of a Michelin-star dish. The look on the family's face when the hot dog arrived? Pure joy, pure surprise, pure connection. That was the moment it all clicked. Hospitality wasn't just about fine china, French sauces, and tuxedoed servers. It was about making people feel seen. It was about listening, really listening, and responding in ways that transform good service into unforgettable memories. This chapter sets the tone for everything to come. Will Guidara calls this kind of service unreasonable hospitality. Not just doing what expected, not just ticking the boxes, but going above and beyond, sometimes irrationally, because that's where the magic lives. It's about making people feel like they matter, not just as customers, but as humans. And here's the twist. This kind of hospitality isn't exclusive to restaurants. Whether you're running a business, managing a team, creating a brand, or even hosting a backyard barbecue, what Guidara discovered applies everywhere. People crave connection. They crave surprise. They crave moments. In a world where so many experiences feel transactional, forgettable, and automated, unreasonable hospitality is a radical act. It's leadership through generosity. It's strategy rooted in heart. And it begins with paying attention. Chapter 1 isn't just about a hot dog. It's about intention. It's about how one small act of genuine care can ripple through a person's entire memory of an experience. Will Guidara realized that day that what people want more than anything is to feel like someone actually gives a damn. And that, right there, is the heartbeat of everything that follows in this story. The restaurant, it became the best in the world. But not because of fancy food, because of the feeling they created. And that hot dog, it was the appetizer for a revolution. Chapter 2. From good to great isn't enough. Will Guidara didn't grow up dreaming of hospitality. He wasn't born with a silver spoon or raised in the back kitchen of a French restaurant. But he always had one thing going for him, an obsession with making people feel something. And as he climbed to the ranks of the fine dining world, he learned a painful truth. Being great wasn't enough anymore. 11 Madison Park was already one of the best restaurants in the city. It was polished, precise, flawless. But Guidara knew something was missing. Guests came in, raved about the food, took their selfies, and left. Sure, they were impressed. But were they truly moved? Were they walking away feeling something more than that was a nice dinner? The answer, too often, was no. That realization hit hard. Because perfection, on its own, is forgettable. What sticks with people isn't just the experience. It's the emotion attached to it. It's the personal story. It's the unexpected kindness. It's a moment that makes someone go, wow, they actually noticed me. This chapter is all about the bold decision we made to shift from excellence to connection, not just chasing stars or titles, but building something deeper. And that meant challenging everything the fine dining world held sacred. He began asking, what would happen if we stopped just serving people and started celebrating them? What if, instead of hiding behind elegance, they led with enthusiasm? What they cared more about how people felt than how the room looked or how expensive the wine list was. This chapter is where unreasonable hospitality starts taking real shape. It's not a gimmick. It's not a service hack. It's a mindset, and it takes guts to lean into it. Because doing more than expected often means stepping out of line, breaking routine, and putting people over procedures. The turning point came when we'll realize something most leaders forget. It's not just the product you sell. It's the feeling you deliver. That's what turns a good brand into a movement. That's what keeps people coming back. Not for what they get, but for how you make them feel. So, Will began to retrain his team. Not just to serve, but to see. Not just to deliver, but to delight. The staff at 11 Madison Park became experts in reading the room, noticing the little things, the offhand comments, the special dates, the tiniest cues that could be turned into unforgettable moments. They didn't just ask what guests wanted. They started anticipating what guests didn't even know they needed. And that's where the magic lives. Because when you commit to going beyond the expected, you stop being a service provider and start being a storyteller. You don't just serve meals. You create memories. This chapter makes it clear. Good enough is boring. Great is expected. But unreasonable? That's where the soul is. That's where people feel seen. That's what changes lives, even if it's just over dinner. Chapter 3. The transformational power of a single choice. Everything changes the moment you realize you have more control than you think. Will Guidara had reached a tipping point. He was running one of the best restaurants in the world, but still, something felt mechanical, predictable. Even in excellence, there was a ceiling. So he made a choice, not a small, behind-the-scenes adjustment, but a loud, unapologetic pivot. Hospitality would become a priority, not just quality, not efficiency, not reputation, but the human experience. It would be the compass guiding every move at 11 Madison Park. That one decision didn't just tweak the restaurant's culture, it detonated it. It forced him and his team to look at every moment, every interaction, every plate with fresh eyes. What if the point wasn't just to impress people, but to move them? What if each guest didn't just need service, but surprise, joy, and recognition? This chapter is where things shift from concept to lifestyle. Because unreasonable hospitality isn't something you do, it's something you become. It's about baking care into your DNA. It's about making service not a transaction, but a relationship. And it all begins with awareness. Will started teaching his staff to truly observe, not just ask, do you like the wine, but to notice the hesitation before the glass hits the lips, to hear the sigh in someone's voice when they talk about missing home, to pick up on the guest who just came from the airport or just got engaged or just lost someone. The smallest details held the biggest opportunities. Like the man dining alone, who mentioned offhand that he missed his dog. Will's team didn't just nod sympathetically. They found a local bakery that made dog treats, bought a bag, and handed it to him with a note before he left. We hope this brings your pup a little bit of New York. He was stunned. It cost maybe $5, but to him, it was worth everything. This chapter beats with one core message. One small choice can redefine a relationship. It can take an ordinary dinner and turn it into the highlight of someone's year. Not because of extravagance, but because of intention. Because you chose to go the extra mile. Most businesses play defense. They react to what's in front of them. But Will flipped it. He played offense with empathy. He trained his team to see every single guest as a chance to tell a new story. It wasn't easy. It took practice. Mistakes were made. But once that culture was built, once that level of care became second nature, everything elevated. The energy changed. The team felt more alive. The guests became part of something bigger than a meal. This chapter reminds us that excellence isn't always about doing more. Sometimes it's about doing something simple, but with such care that it leaves people speechless. Will Guidara chose connection. He chose heart. And in doing so, he turned a world-class restaurant into a world-changing experience. All because of one decision. Chapter 4. It starts at the top. Culture is never an accident. It doesn't just evolve, it's built, brick by brick. And in this chapter, Will Guidara makes one thing painfully clear. If you want a team that gives unreasonable hospitality, you better start by giving it to them first. Everything rises and falls on leadership, not on speeches or mission statements, but on how you treat people when nobody's watching. The restaurant industry isn't for the faint of heart. Long hours, high pressure, constant motion. It's easy for leaders to get caught in the chase for perfection and forget the people behind the scenes making it all happen, but will refuse to lead from above. He led from within. He knew that hospitality couldn't just be outward-facing. If you want your team to give extraordinary service to guests, you have to give extraordinary care to your team. Simple as that. He started seeing each staff member not as a cog in a machine, but as a partner in something sacred. He listened when they were frustrated. He celebrated when they succeeded. He paid attention to what they loved, what they feared, what they were capable of becoming. And when they felt seen, everything changed. This chapter dives into how internal culture drives external excellence. Will didn't just say, teamwork matters. He lived it. He practiced what he preached. He made room for conversations. He created rituals. He built a culture where humility, ambition, and joy could all coexist. It wasn't about being soft. It was about being real. He held people accountable, but with compassion. He gave feedback, but with purpose. And in return, people went above and beyond, not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to. There's a story in this chapter where a dishwasher, someone usually invisible in the restaurant hierarchy, shared an idea that helped improve the flow of service. Most places wouldn't even listen, but Will did. And it wasn't just about the idea. It was about sending a message. Everyone matters here. That moment turned into a ripple effect. Because when people feel valued, they take ownership. When they take ownership, they create magic. And when that magic spreads, the whole experience becomes something unforgettable. Culture isn't a perk. It's not something you fix when the numbers drop. It's the foundation of everything. And in hospitality, just like in life, people don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. So we'll double down. He created a team that loved being at work. Not because it was easy, but because it was meaningful. Because they knew they were part of something bigger. They weren't just serving food. They were creating moments, changing lives, leaving a mark. That energy, that heartbeat, started with leadership, with someone who looked at people and said, I see you, I believe in you, and I'll go first. Unreasonable hospitality doesn't begin with the customer. It begins at the top. Chapter 5, The Art of Being Present. In a world obsessed with speed, being present feels like a lost art. But Will Guidara discovered that presence, genuine, undistracted presence, is the secret ingredient to unforgettable hospitality. Not just physically showing up, but emotionally locking in, with guests, with your team, with yourself. This chapter isn't about flashy gestures. It's about attention. The kind of attention that slows time down. That makes someone feel like they're the only person in the room. Because here's the truth. Most people walk through life feeling invisible. And the smallest act of being fully present can flip their entire experience. Will tells a story about a guest who came into the restaurant looking tense and checked out. Nothing seemed to impress him. But instead of writing him off, a server just asked how his day had been, not as a script, but with real curiosity. The guest opened up. He had just lost his job. That tiny moment of empathy sparked something. Suddenly, the dinner wasn't just a meal. It was a pause in a storm. A moment of peace. Presence isn't about solving problems. It's about seeing people. And when people feel seen, they relax. They open up. They become human again. This is why we'll train his team to put down their own distractions. to stop rehearsing the next line in their head, and instead tune into what was actually happening in front of them. Did the guests fidget with their silverware? That might mean anxiety. Did they pause at a dish description? That could be interest or confusion. It's subtle, it's quiet, but it's powerful. The lesson here is that the greatest hospitality doesn't come from memorizing steps. It comes from reading the room, feeling the energy, responding like a human being, not a robot. And that only happens when you're fully there. Will also flips this concept inward. Being present doesn't just benefit the guest, it saves you. So many people burn out because they live in constant projection, worrying about what's next, reliving what went wrong. But presence anchors you. It makes you better at your craft. It helps you connect, not just serve. He brings up another pivotal moment. When a young server tried to impress by reciting the entire menu perfectly but totally missed the guest's lack of interest. They were in a rush and she missed it. Not because she didn't care, but because she was stuck in her head. That night became a lesson. Your knowledge means nothing if it isn't in service of the moment. Presence is a discipline. You have to fight for it in a distracted world. But it pays off in ways that are hard to measure and impossible to fake. When you're present, you notice the opportunity to go the extra mile. You see the story before it finishes writing itself. You feel the emotion behind the words. And that's where unreasonable hospitality lives. Not in the grand gestures, but in the micro moments that most people miss. And the best part? Anyone can do it. You don't need $1 million budget or a Michelin star. Just your full attention. That's the difference between service and something unforgettable. Chapter 6. Say yes first. Most people in hospitality are trained to be cautious. Stick to the rules. Play it safe. But Will Guidara flipped the script. He taught his team something radical. Say yes first. Figure out how later. That simple mindset shift changed everything. This chapter opens with a story. A guest walks into the restaurant and casually mentions how much they miss milkshakes from their hometown. That moment could have passed. Most restaurants would have nodded politely and moved on. But Will's team didn't wait. They heard the longing in the guest's voice, and they acted. No milkshakes on the menu? Doesn't matter. One of the staff members ran down the block, bought ingredients, and whipped up a custom milkshake just for that guest. The look on their face, pure shock, joy, disbelief. It wasn't about the milkshake. It was about the gesture. The fact that someone listened. That someone cared enough to do something unnecessary, just because they could. Will realize most businesses are trained to protect themselves from risk. But in doing that, they protect themselves from impact. They create boundaries that stop magic from happening. He decided to build a culture where defaulting to yes was not only allowed, it was expected. That doesn't mean saying yes to every demand, no matter how wild. It means listening beneath the request, hearing the emotion, then responding like a human, not a policy. It means trusting your people, giving them permission to use judgment, to make decisions that aren't just operational, but emotional. When you say yes first, you unlock possibility. You create moments that no one sees coming. And those are the moments people remember for the rest of their lives. One time, a couple celebrating an anniversary mentioned they were flying to Paris the next day. Will's team arranged for croissants to be delivered to their hotel room in Paris. Why? Because unreasonable hospitality doesn't end at the table. It extends beyond the walls of the restaurant. It follows people into their stories. That gesture cost them very little. But the impact? Huge. That couple told that story over and over again. They became walking billboards for 11 Madison Park. Not because of the food, but because of how they felt. Will breaks it down simply. In a competitive world, the best marketing isn't marketing. It's memory. If you give people something they never saw coming, something that hits the heart, they do the talking for you. Saying yes first isn't reckless. It's generous. It's about replacing we can't with how might we. It turns a transactional service into a personal relationship, and it reminds every guest and every team member that they matter. That kind of generosity becomes contagious. Teams start competing, not for tips or praise, but for creativity. Who can say yes in the most unexpected way? Who can turn a mundane moment into something magical? And the best part? The guests start to pay it forward. They smile more. They engage more. They begin to carry that spirit of hospitality back into their own lives. That's the ripple effect of saying yes first. It's not just about customer satisfaction. It's about building a movement, one milkshake, one croissant, one surprise at a time. Say yes first, and you'll be amazed at what happens next. Chapter 7. It's not about the food. It's easy to think that in a world-class restaurant, the food is everything. But Will Guidara learn the deeper truth? The food is just the entry point. The real game? The experience. People don't come back because the steak was cooked to perfection. They come back because they felt something. This chapter is about unlearning what most people believe hospitality is. Will had confront his own ego here. He came up in kitchens where the food was the art, the chef was a god, and the guest? Just a mouth to impress. But when he took over the dining room, he started to see things differently. He realized that even if the food was extraordinary, the moment could still fall flat. Guests didn't just want flavor. They wanted to feel seen, celebrated, connected. And that meant every part of the evening had to sing in harmony. The music, the way the napkin was folded, the moment the wine arrived, the energy of the server, the intention behind every touch point. Will tells a story of a family who brought their young son to 11 Madison Park. It was a fine dining place. No kids menu. But instead of treating the child as an inconvenience, the team welcomed him with curiosity. They made him feel like royalty. Custom food, a mini tour of the kitchen, even a toy at the end of the night. That boy didn't remember the tasting notes of the duck, but he remembered how they made him feel. The message is clear. The food might get people in the door, but what they carry out is emotion. Will became obsessed with orchestrating moments, not meals. He wanted his team to behave less like servers and more like storytellers. Each night was a stage, and the guests were the stars. The question became, how do we create moments they'll talk about for years? He stopped obsessing about the plate and started focusing on the person holding the fork. It's easy to think this level of service is only for luxury experiences, but Will pushes back hard on that idea. Hospitality isn't about wealth or status. It's about heart. A neighborhood diner can deliver unreasonable hospitality just as powerfully as a Michelin-starred giant. You just have to care. You just have to listen. You just have to make it about them. So when you strip away the ego, the trends, the Instagrammable dishes, what remains? The guest. The human being who chose to spend their time and money with you. That's the sacred contract. They gave you their night. Now, give them something unforgettable. And it doesn't take a big gesture. Sometimes it's just remembering their name. Asking a question no one else bothered to ask. Anticipating a need before they say it. Or celebrating a milestone they didn't even mention, but you overheard. Will's rule, find a moment behind the moment. If someone orders champagne, maybe they're celebrating. Find out why. If they're quiet, maybe they need calm, not chatter. Hospitality starts with curiosity, because when it's done right, the guest doesn't just feel full, they feel whole. And that's the kind of experience they'll chase for the rest of their lives. So no, it's not about the food. It never really was. It's about the people. Every single time. Chapter 8. The best servers are like magicians. Great service is invisible until the moment it becomes unforgettable. That's the paradox. And in this chapter, Will Guidara unveils one of the most overlooked secrets in hospitality. The best servers are like magicians. Not because they trick you, but because they surprise you in ways that feel almost impossible. Think about it. A magician works in silence. He doesn't announce the trick. He just executes it with precision, timing, and grace. And when it lands, you're left stunned, delighted, asking, how did they do that? That's exactly what Will train his team to do. Anticipate needs. Read the room. Memorize details before the guest even sits down. The work happens backstage, out of sight, so that when the moment comes, it feels effortless, magical. He tells the story of a guest who casually mentioned that her favorite drink was a Negroni, but she liked it with a special gin that wasn't on the restaurant's bar list. A lesser team might apologize and offer a substitute, but not Will's. Someone quietly slipped out, found that exact gin at a nearby liquor store, and served her drink exactly how she liked it. She was floored. The thing is, the staff never made a show of it. No grand announcement. Just a smile, a perfectly timed delivery, and a guest who felt known. That's the magic. But magic doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of discipline. We'll talk about how they build internal systems to track preferences, not just allergies or birthdays, but nuances. Did the guests prefer sparkling or still water? Were they left-handed? Did they have a favorite table? Every tiny data point was treated like gold. Some may scoff. That's obsessive, right? Too much effort? Will disagrees. He argues that people crave that level of personalization because it makes them feel human in a world that's become transactional. This is where unreasonable hospitality separates itself from ordinary service. It doesn't wait to be asked. It's proactive. It's attentive. The best teams become students of human behavior. They learn to read between the lines. What's said, what's not said, what's felt. Magicians know how to create awe, but servers, when trained well, can create that same awe through empathy. Will shares how he would encourage his staff to treat service like choreography, not just walking food to a table, but orchestrating a performance where every move has intention. It's about body language, eye contact, timing, and above all, presence. Because real hospitality requires being there, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. No autopilot allowed. He calls this gracious sleight of hand. You never want the guests to feel your effort. The magic works best when it's quiet, when they look back and realize, wow, that was flawless, and I didn't even notice it happening. The best servers don't just serve food, they serve comfort, assurance, celebration. They make people feel like the only ones in the room. And that, Will says, is one of the rarest gifts in the modern world. People forget flavors, but they never forget how you made them feel. So if you want to be great in hospitality, or frankly, in life, be like the magician. Be prepared. Be intentional. Be invisible until it's time to shine. And when that moment comes, make them believe in magic again. Chapter 9. Take what you do seriously without taking yourself too seriously. Some people confuse professionalism with rigidity. Will Guidara doesn't. In this chapter, he breaks down one of the most powerful lessons he ever learned. The secret to building a culture that inspires joy, creativity, and trust lies in balance. You gotta take what you do seriously. But if you take yourself too seriously, you lose the magic. Hospitality is serious business. Lives depend on it. Emotions hinge on it. Entire evenings, proposals, reunions, even breakups, all play out across dinner tables. But we'll realize that excellence doesn't require stiffness. In fact, the more they leaned into playfulness, the better the results. He reflects on moments where his team went above and beyond by doing something unexpected, not fancy, but fun. There was a time a table asked for hot dogs as a joke. This was a fine dining room. Mind you, white tablecloths, tasting menus. But instead of brushing it off, they made it happen. They served a perfectly plated gourmet hot dog mid-meal, complete with condiments in tiny porcelain ramekins. The guests lost their minds, in the best way. That moment didn't compromise the integrity of the restaurant. It elevated it, because it reminded everyone that the core of hospitality isn't about rigid standards. It's about joy. Will talked about the dangers of ego, especially in elite spaces. He saw how quickly people could become trapped in their own image. The chef who refused to alter a dish. The manager who clung to protocol. The staff member who saw a guest joke as an insult to their craft. And each time ego won, the experience lost. So he started teaching his team a new kind of discipline. Humble confidence. Take pride in your craft. Master every detail. But stay open. Stay light. Be willing to laugh. To pivot. To admit when something didn't go as planned. And recover with grace. Because when you take yourself too seriously, you stop listening. You stop adapting. You stop connecting. And hospitality without connection? It's just a transaction. Will made it a point to lead by example. He'd dance behind the scenes. Crack jokes during pre-service meetings. He'd create space for joy. Because he knew that if the team was having fun, the guests would feel it too. He also shares a moment of deep vulnerability, a night where everything went sideways. Mistakes happened. Timing was off. Tension was high. But instead of spiraling, his team rallied and laughed. They held each other up. They didn't let the seriousness of their jobs strip them of their humanity. And in the end, the guests had no idea anything went wrong. That's the power of a team that knows how to breathe and move with rhythm, not rigidity. This chapter is a permission slip. It reminds everyone in the business of service, or any business, really, that authenticity beats performance every time. You don't need to be robotic to be excellent. You need to be alive, curious, human. Take what you do seriously, because people are trusting you with their time, their stories, their memories. But don't take yourself too seriously, or you'll forget how to dance in the middle of the chaos. And sometimes it's in that dance, that moment of levity, that burst of laughter, that the most unforgettable hospitality is born. Chapter 10. Focus on the details that matter. In hospitality, Will Guidara learned that greatness is found not in sweeping gestures, but in the details. The big moments may grab attention, but it's the tiny, almost invisible touches that create lasting memories. Chapter 10 is a masterclass in precision and care, the kind of care that shows you truly see the person in front of you. Will shares how early in his career he thought hospitality was about grand flourishes, champagne towers, fireworks, extravagant dishes. But those moments, while dazzling, are fleeting. What stays with guests long after the meal ends are the details. The way their water glass was refilled just before it emptied, the soft whisper of the server's voice when offering a recommendation, the subtle change in lighting as the evening darkened. These details tell a story. They say, "You matter." They say, "We're paying attention." And in a world drowning in noise, that message is revolutionary. Will describes a system he built to track these details. Not just allergies or birthdays, but preferences and patterns. Did the guests prefer a particular brand of sparkling water? Did they appreciate a quiet corner over a lively table? Was the temperature of the room just right? Every detail was a puzzle piece in creating an experience that felt handcrafted. He also dives into the power of rituals. Simple repeated actions that communicate reliability and warmth. Greeting every guest with a genuine smile. Folding napkins a certain way. A quick but thoughtful farewell. These rituals become the invisible threads that weave the entire experience together. What Will emphasizes is this. Details are not about perfection for perfection's sake. They're about empathy. The best details anticipate needs before they are spoken aloud. They soothe anxiety, spark joy, and invite guests into a space where they feel safe and valued. There's a story about a guest who nervously came for an important dinner. The staff noticed his hands trembled slightly as he reached for his glass. Without a word, a server subtly offered a handkerchief, a reassuring nod and a calm presence. The guest never mentioned it, but later wrote a heartfelt note about how that small gesture made all the difference. That's the essence of unreasonable hospitality. Seeing the invisible, acting on the unspoken. Will challenges us all to rethink how we approach details. Instead of rushing past them as small annoyances or afterthoughts, he asks, what if every detail was a chance to connect? What if every moment carried the possibility of kindness? He warns against the trap of checklist mentality. Details aren't just boxes to tick. They're opportunities to make someone's day better. In the end, Will reminds us that when done with love, the details multiply. They build trust, loyalty, and a reputation that no amount of advertising can buy. So, focus on the details that matter, not because they're required, but because they're everything. Chapter 11. Hospitality is a team sport. Will Guidara knows firsthand that hospitality is never a solo act. It's a symphony played by a whole orchestra of people, each with a crucial part to play. In this chapter, he pulls back the curtain on the teamwork and collaboration that fuels truly unforgettable experiences. He starts by describing the dynamic behind the scenes: chefs, servers, hosts, bartenders, cleaners, all hustling in sync, each movement intentional, each person tuned into the others. The kitchen and dining room might seem like separate worlds, but in a place built on unreasonable hospitality, they move as one. We'll talk about building a culture where every team member feels valued and empowered to contribute their unique strengths. It's not about hierarchy or ego. It's about shared purpose. Everyone knows that the guest experience depends on all of them, not just one star performer. He recounts how during a particularly busy night, a server noticed a chef struggling to finish a complicated dish on time. Without hesitation, the server jumped in to help plate, even though it wasn't their job. That small act of stepping beyond defined roles saved the moment and lifted everyone's spirits. The message is clear. When hospitality teams collaborate with trust and humility, magic happens. When people care enough to support each other, guests feel it, whether they realize it consciously or not. We'll also emphasize this communication as the backbone of this teamwork. The best teams don't just work side by side. They talk, listen, anticipate, and adjust in real time. Brief huddles before service, quick check-ins during shifts, and honest debriefs after. They build a rhythm that keeps the whole operation humming. But the real power comes from creating an environment where everyone feels psychologically safe to speak up, offer ideas, and even admit mistakes. Will shares how he encouraged staff to see failure as part of growth, not shame. This openness bred resilience and innovation. The chapter doesn't shy away from the challenges either. High pressure, long hours, emotional labor. Will acknowledges that working in hospitality can be tough. That's why fostering a sense of family and shared mission is vital. He quotes a mentor who once told him, "You're only as strong as your weakest teammate." That idea became a cornerstone of his leadership. Taking care of your team means they can take better care of your guests. Will closes by reminding us that unreasonable hospitality isn't about lone heroes. It's a team sport where every player matters. The moments that take your breath away, the flawless service, the unexpected kindness, are the result of a whole team moving together with heart and purpose. If you want to create experiences people remember, start by building a team they can trust. Chapter 12. Build a culture that embodies hospitality. In this chapter, Will Guidara dives deep into one of the hardest yet most rewarding parts of hospitality, building a culture that truly lives and breathes hospitality every single day. He learned early on that no matter how great an individual effort is, if the culture isn't right, the magic won't last. Will talks about culture as the invisible force that shapes behavior, decisions, and ultimately the guest experience. It's the personality of the organization, the shared values that everyone from the dishwasher to the general manager embodies, even when no one's watching. He shares how at 11 Madison Park, they didn't just want to be known for their food or service, but for the spirit behind it all, the generosity, care, and joy that staff brought into every interaction. That spirit became the North Star for every hire, every policy, every moment on the floor. But culture doesn't build itself. It requires intention and constant nurturing. Will describes rituals they created, like daily check-ins that weren't about tasks but about how people were feeling. Small celebrations for wins, honest conversations about struggles, and moments to share gratitude. These built trust and connection. He also stresses the importance of hiring for attitude and heart over just skills. The best team members might not have perfect resumes, but they have the spark of genuine care and a willingness to go the extra mile. Those are the people who carry culture forward. Will warns against complacency. Culture can't be a static plaque on the wall. It's alive and needs to be tended like a garden. Leaders have to be the gardeners, constantly weeding out negativity and planting seeds of encouragement. He tells a story about a difficult period where morale dipped, and instead of ignoring it, leadership leaned in, asking tough questions, admitting flaws, and committing to change. That honesty recharged the team's commitment. One of the most powerful lessons in this chapter is about ownership. When everyone feels personally responsible for culture, amazing things happen. People don't just do their jobs. They look out for each other and the guests, anticipating needs and creating moments that surprise and delight. Will closes with a challenge. Culture is a foundation of unreasonable hospitality. Without it, even the best systems and intentions fall flat. But with it, you can move mountains. You can turn ordinary interactions into extraordinary experiences that people remember forever. Creating that culture takes work, courage, and love, but it's the most worthwhile investment you can make. Chapter 13. The power of generosity. In this chapter, Will Guidara explores how generosity isn't just a nice-to-have in hospitality. It's the very essence that transforms ordinary service into something unforgettable. He argues that generosity is the secret ingredient that creates genuine connections and lasting impressions. Will reflects on his early days in the business when he thought generosity meant big gestures, splurging on expensive wines or lavish gifts. But over time, he realized that generosity is much more nuanced. It's about giving without expecting anything in return, often in the smallest ways. Generosity is showing up with a mindset that you have something to offer beyond what's required. It's about going off script to meet someone's unspoken needs. It's the subtle extra that makes a guest feel truly seen and cared for. We'll share stories of moments where generosity changed everything. A handwritten note left on a table, a surprise dessert for someone celebrating quietly, or a server who took time to remember a guest's favorite dish from a previous visit. These small acts don't just make people happy. They create loyalty, trust, and a sense of belonging. He emphasizes that generosity isn't only for guests, but also within the team. When colleagues support each other generously, it creates an atmosphere where everyone thrives. That generosity flows outward, touching every interaction. Will challenges a common misconception that generosity is costly. Often, it requires more heart than money. Listening attentively, sharing a genuine smile, or offering undivided attention costs nothing, but means everything. The chapter also explores the risks involved. Giving more than expected sometimes feels vulnerable. Will it be appreciated or taken for granted? But Will encourages leaning into that vulnerability because the rewards far outweigh the risks. He wraps up by urging us to embrace generosity as a daily practice, a habit to cultivate relentlessly. When generosity becomes a default, hospitality ceases to be a transaction and becomes a gift. Will's message is clear. Generosity doesn't just enrich others, it enriches us. It opens doors to deeper relationships and a more meaningful life. Chapter 14, Creating Moments That Last. In this chapter, Will Guidara reveals the art and science behind creating moments that linger long after the experience ends. He understands that in hospitality, the memory of a moment is far more powerful than the moment itself. What guests carry with them is the feeling, the emotion that sticks in their minds and hearts. Will begins by explaining that these moments aren't accidents or flukes. They're the result of intentional design, attention, and care. They happen when hospitality goes beyond routine and becomes something deeply personal and meaningful. He shares stories of carefully crafted surprises and gestures that created unforgettable memories. A meal prepared with a guest's favorite childhood flavors, a private table set up just for a couple celebrating an anniversary, or a spontaneous toast that turned a simple evening into a celebration of connection. The power of storytelling is central in this chapter. Will emphasizes that every moment in hospitality is a chance to tell a story about care, respect, and delight. When the staff understand this, they become storytellers who weave warmth and personality into every interaction. He also talks about timing. A perfectly timed gesture, whether an accompanying word or a thoughtfully placed gift, can transform the guest experience from good to remarkable. It's about reading the room, understanding the guest's mood, and responding with empathy. Will cautions against overdoing it or making moments feel staged or insincere. Authenticity is key. Guests can sense when a gesture is forced or transactional. The best moments come from a genuine desire to connect and serve. He stresses that these moments build relationships. They turn strangers into regulars, transactions into friendships, and ordinary visits into cherished memories. The chapter closes with a challenge to hospitality providers and beyond. Think about the moments you create every day. Are they memorable? Are they meaningful? Are they built to last? Because when you create moments that last, you're not just serving people, you're touching lives. Chapter 15, The Courage to Care. In this chapter, Will Guidara explores what it really takes to practice unreasonable hospitality, the courage to care deeply and visibly in a world that often values efficiency over empathy. He acknowledges that caring is not always easy. It can make you vulnerable, expose you to disappointment, and challenge the norms of business as usual. Will reflects on his own journey, where he learned that true hospitality means putting yourself out there, risking rejection, and sometimes failing. But it also means standing firm in your commitment to make people feel value beyond transactions or checklists. He shares stories of moments when choosing to care made a difference, whether it was going the extra mile to help a guest with a personal problem or empowering a team member struggling through a tough time. These acts required bravery because they weren't mandated, and they exposed them to uncertainty. Will stresses that courage and care go hand in hand. You can't give exceptional hospitality without risking discomfort or overextending yourself. But it's precisely this willingness to lean into discomfort that builds trust and lasting relationships. The chapter also addresses the fear many feel about setting expectations too high. What if you can't always deliver? Will encourages embracing that fear but choosing to act anyway, believing that the intention and effort to care often mean more than perfection. He reminds us that courage to care must also be cultivated within teams. Leaders set the tone by modeling vulnerability and prioritizing human connection over metrics alone. Will closes with powerful call to action. Hospitality, at its core, is an act of bravery. When you choose to care recklessly, you create a ripple effect of kindness that transforms not only your guests but also yourself. Chapter 16, Hospitality as a Way of Life. In this chapter, Will Guidara expands the idea of hospitality beyond restaurants and hotels, inviting us to see it as a philosophy, a way of living that transcends industries and permeates every relationship. He believes that unreasonable hospitality is not just a business strategy, but a profound mindset that can transform how we interact with the world. Will explains how the lessons learned from hospitality, anticipating needs, creating joy, and giving generously, can enrich our personal lives, communities, and workplaces. When hospitality becomes a daily habit, it reshapes our perspectives, making us more empathetic, patient, and present. He shares personal anecdotes about applying hospitality principles in unexpected contexts, from helping neighbors to supporting colleagues, and how these small acts of care ripple outward, creating connections and goodwill. Will also discusses the challenges of sustaining this approach in everyday life. It requires intentionality and a commitment to prioritize others' experiences even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. But the rewards are immeasurable. Deeper bonds, greater trust, and a sense of purpose. The chapter emphasizes that hospitality is not about perfection or grand gestures, but about consistent kindness and attentiveness. It's about showing up fully for people and seeking opportunities to brighten their day. Will invites readers to imagine a world where unreasonable hospitality is the norm, where kindness is expected, generosity is abundant, and people feel truly seen and valued. He believes this vision is within reach if enough of us choose to live with this mindset. He concludes by urging us to carry the spirit of hospitality into every interaction, big or small, and to make a way of life that not only serves others, but also enriches our own hearts. Chapter 17, The Ripple Effect of Kindness. In this chapter, Will Guidara explores how acts of unreasonable hospitality create ripples far beyond the immediate moment or place. He explains that generosity and care don't just impact the person receiving them. They influence everyone around, multiplying in ways we often don't see. Will shares powerful stories of guests who were so deeply moved by small, thoughtful gestures that they went on to pay it forward, creating their own moments of kindness and generosity in their communities. These ripples build momentum and can spark larger movements of care. He emphasizes that hospitality is contagious. When people experience genuine care, they are more likely to extend that care to others, fostering a culture of kindness that spreads through families, workplaces, and neighborhoods. Will also talk about how businesses that embrace this mindset don't just build customer loyalty, they build communities. The emotional connections created through hospitality encourage people to return, share their experiences, and support one another. But the ripple effect isn't limited to guests or customers. It starts internally within teams. When colleagues treat each other with generosity and respect, that culture spills over into how they serve others, creating a positive cycle of care. The chapter challenges us to think about our own actions and how even the smallest kindness can set off a chain reaction. Every intentional moment of care, no matter how modest, has the power to make a lasting impact. Will concludes with an inspiring reminder. You don't have to be in hospitality to create these ripples. Every one of us has the ability to spread kindness and generosity in ways that echo far beyond what we can imagine. Chapter 18, listening as an act of love. In this chapter, Will Guidara dives deep into one of the most underrated elements of hospitality, listening. He reveals that truly hearing someone, really tuning in without distractions or agendas, is a profound way to show care and respect. Will explains that listening isn't just about words. It's about paying attention to what's unspoken, noticing body language, tone, and emotion. This kind of listening allows you to anticipate needs before they're even voiced and respond with empathy and insight. He shares powerful stories where attentive listening transformed interactions, whether it was a guest quietly sharing a personal struggle or a team member revealing fears and hopes. In each case, the simple act of being present created trust and deepened connection. Will stresses that listening requires humility and patience. It means putting aside your own thoughts and judgments to make space for someone else's experience. This openness often leads to surprising discoveries and richer relationships. The chapter also highlights how listening fosters creativity and problem solving. When you truly understand someone's perspective, you can tailor your hospitality in unique, meaningful ways that exceed expectations. Will encourages us to practice listening daily, not just in hospitality settings, but in all relationships. He argues that this simple act is a radical form of love, a gift that makes people feel valued and understood. He closes by reminding us that in a noisy, distracted world, the ability to listen deeply is one of the greatest gifts we can offer. It's a foundation for unreasonable hospitality and meaningful human connection. Chapter 19, The Power of Presence. In this chapter, Will Guidara explores the transformative power of being fully present. He argues that true hospitality doesn't just happen through grand gestures or material gifts, but through genuine presence, the ability to give someone your full attention and care in the moment. Will reflects on how easy it is in today's busy world to be distracted, hurried, or emotionally distant. Yet, when you show up completely, for guests, colleagues, or loved ones, you create a space where people feel truly seen and valued. He shares vivid stories of moments when presence changed the entire experience. When a simple pause to listen or a warm smile made someone's day, or when a team member's undivided attention helped solve a problem that no checklist could fix. Will points out that presence is both a choice and a skill. It requires mindfulness, intention, and sometimes courage to step away from distractions and be fully available. The chapter also explores how presence builds trust. When people feel your authentic attention, they relax, open up, and engage more deeply. This is a foundation for building lasting relationships that go beyond transactions. Will emphasizes that presence is contagious. When leaders model it, teams follow suit, and the culture shifts toward deeper connection and care. He closes by inviting us all to practice presence in everyday life. Whether serving a customer, talking with a friend, or simply living our daily routines, being present is the simplest yet most profound way to offer unreasonable hospitality. Chapter 20, The Legacy of Hospitality. In this final chapter, Will Guidara reflects on the lasting impact that unreasonable hospitality can have, not just on individual moments, but on entire lives and communities. He challenges us to think about the legacy we leave behind through the way we treat others. Will explains that hospitality is more than just a business practice or occasional kindness. It is a way to shape culture and influence future generations. The habits of care, generosity, and attention that we cultivate today become the foundation for how people treat each other tomorrow. He shares personal stories about mentors who taught him the power of giving more than expected, and how those lessons continue to ripple through his own life and work. He also highlights the responsibility that comes with this knowledge, to pass it on and inspire others. Will stresses that this legacy isn't built through grand gestures alone, but through consistent, everyday acts of kindness and presence. These small but meaningful moments accumulate, creating a culture of care that can transform organizations, families, and communities. The chapter ends on a hopeful and inspiring note, urging readers to carry the spirit of unreasonable hospitality forward in all aspects of life. By choosing to give more than expected, we create a legacy of generosity, connection, and love that outlasts us. Will reminds us that hospitality is a gift we give, and a gift that keeps giving, shaping a better world one moment at a time. That's the essence of unreasonable hospitality. When you give more than people expect, you create experiences they'll never forget, and relationships that last. Which idea from this summary inspired you the most? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your takeaway. If this video helped you think differently, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Detailed Book Summaries for more life-changing lessons from books that matter. Remember, success isn't just about what you do. It's how you make people feel. See you in the next video.